Hello, my name is Salma and welcome to my channel. If you would like to book a personal reading, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com, or you can look up my personal website, which is tattoosandtarot.com, and you can see what other services I have to offer with regard to readings. In any case, I hope you enjoy your monthly Taroscope reading, and any questions that you have, feel free to message me. All right, have a good one. Bye. Hi, Leo. How are you guys doing? Leo, July 2017. As I was shuffling earlier, thinking about you all, I heard the word sick. Sick. I don't know if there's some health stuff that's coming up, and not just physical health, but spiritual health, mental health, the health of your personal relationships. And I just kind of got this like tense, nervous feeling that kind of came up. So, yeah. Yeah. The moon. Five of Swords and the Nine of Swords. So there's something going on with you all. There's something that you're running from. There's something that you don't want, that we don't want to face. And it's interesting that the moon came up because there's going to be a new moon in Leo on July 23rd. And you know, new moons give us an opportunity to look at like what's coming up, like what's coming, like what needs to, like what do we need to begin anew in the area, or you know, that part of the sky where the new moon is showing up. And I know that it's like a new moon in Leo. I didn't look at the Leo sky for the astrological forecast, but something, you know, I know that for Aquarius, which is your opposite sign, right? In Aquarius, you know, you're gonna the moon is showing up. Well, that's the full moon. The full moon is going to be in the 12th house for Aquarius. So I'm just trying to piece together what area, you know, the new moon is gonna kind of manifest itself for you in your sky. But and even just in the way that I feel right now, like I just feel really scattered, and like, I just feel really scattered, and like I don't know what I'm talking about, kind of. Yeah, so there's something coming up. Let me pull a couple more cards. What I have already is feels kind of heavy. Feels kind of intense. And, you know, it kind of makes me a little unsettled, or not unsettled, but just a little, you know, you know, the end of the month is your birthday. You know, this is kind of like your pre-party month, and you know, yeah. What else is coming up? What else is coming up for Leo? A lot of my closest friends are Leos. And yeah, got some. Okay, let's do two more for Leo. There has to be some kind of new beginning, and some kind of new beginning, renewed commitment, renewed. All right, there we go. Yeah. Sorry, I have to get out of the chair to get the card. Okay. All right. So we have the moon. we have the moon here. And the moon can represent things that, you know, are hidden, things that are in our subconscious. It can also represent, our shadow sides, the sides of ourselves that we don't really want to face. It could represent what we're kind of running from, and, in conjunction with this Five of Swords. The Five of Swords, I kind of see this card as like a card of empty defeat, a card of, this glare is obnoxious. I kind of see it as a card of, where was I? Endless or empty defeat. Not endless defeat, empty defeat. So it's like this figure here, he's defeated these two other figures here, right? These two other men. But it's kind of like at what cost, right? Like he's, it's like at what cost has he defeated, right? Like now he has all the swords, and it's also kind of like a card of like a cheap victory. You're tricking yourself. You're tricking yourself into thinking that you don't have to face whatever this moon, right? Like you're thinking that you can get away with not facing what's hidden within this moon, right? Like you're thinking that you can outsmart the moon. You can outsmart you don't have you can outsmart the shadow side. You don't have to look at or face the shadow aspects that are trying to be illuminated, right? Trying to be illuminated, trying to be shown through. And so, what's happening for you? I would really definitely pay attention to what sort of is happening for you emotionally, and like what behaviors you're noticing, what things about yourself you're noticing that you don't really want to face, like what's coming up for you for the full moon that's coming up in Capricorn on July 9th, and also for your new moon in Leo on, July 23rd. And, if you have the ability to look up in your individual specific chart, like where that full moon and that new moon is happening, because the general profiles are great, but it's also really great to have an individual, idea of where, your full moon is where the full moon is happening, where the new moon is happening in your specific chart. But there's something going on that you're like, I'm gonna outsmart it. And you can't, like, it's like trying to outsmart karma. Like, you can't do that. It's not possible. And and the more that you run from it, the more that it's like, that it's there and you can't ignore it. So there's obviously, this is the Nine of Swords. It's worry, it's mental anguish. It's like another level of self-imprisonment, right? Like you can't even sleep. You can't even, your thoughts, your mind, it's haunting you all the time, right? And it's like, the longer that we try to ignore or we try to like run from that very thing that we know is not working for us, the more it haunts us. And the more, it's like in the Eight of Swords, the woman in the Eight of Swords, for those of you familiar with tarot and the Rider-Waite imagery, it's like, she's bound and she's got the blindfold on and she's just surrounded by these swords, and it's like, she's in this, she's imprisoned herself, but it's almost as if like that imprisonment is, she could pick up the sword and, and release herself, and then she's free, right? And so her imprisonment exists in that specific area. Whereas with the Nine of Swords, like that energy, that worry, that it kind of ends up rolling over and exuding into everyday, like all aspects of our lives, right? Like you can no longer compartmentalize like these swords. These swords are now haunting you in your dreams and your sleep, and it's, and you thought you had control over it and you don't, and it's trying to be, something is trying to be illuminated. But yeah, like when I started the reading, I just like was like, I had no, like I couldn't even I don't know, I just felt very scattered and very, like distracted, was a good word for me to, for me to, kind of see. Even now, I'm just like, what do I, distracted is a good word to describe how I was feeling. And, next to the Knight of Swords, we have the Hierophant. And, the Hierophant, once again, Miss Glare. There we go. So the Hierophant, in a sense, represents, like our societal conventions, traditions, uh, how we sort of, our values, the values, traditions. That's kind of the archetype that, or the symbolism that comes up when I think of the archetype of the Hierophant, right? Like, um, traditional marriages, things of that nature, and beliefs that we hold on to, right? Like, what are the beliefs that we hold on to? What are the structures that kind of keep us boxed in a little bit? Like, what are the thing? Like, what are the ways? What are the beliefs? Not necessarily like the behaviors, but like the beliefs that allow for the behaviors to do what they do, right? Like, what are the beliefs that kind of if you have addiction issues, or if you have certain relationship patterns, or if you have, if you have a certain pattern, right, or a certain karmic pattern that continues to like reveal itself, that continues, that continues to try to illuminate itself. Like, what are the beliefs that keep you caged in? Like, what are the, like, what's your like, what are your beliefs? And, and I do see, like, we have the Three of Wands here, right? Like, that there is a desire to kind of maybe look away from, or not look away, like, to look beyond, and to kind of actually maybe look out into the horizon and think, what other ways, like, what are the other, how can I break free, or how can I expand, right? Because the Three of Wands is also sometimes, for me initially, it usually is a card of like waiting, right, for something to come in, and there's not a guarantee of whether it's going to come in or not, right? It's a card of, you've put an idea out there and you're kind of waiting for it to boomerang back to you, and you're sitting there waiting. But it's also a card of expansion. It's also a card of like looking out and saying like, how can I expand beyond, certain beliefs, or like certain ways of being, and certain ways of, certain conventional, like, what are the patterns in the beliefs that you've locked yourself into? Like what keeps you in this place? Like, what's the behavior? Like, what is what is the moon trying to show you? There's definitely, there's definitely something that a lot of what I'm feeling is that a lot of you aren't facing, about your own inner nature. And there's a lot of swords, so I think I feel that it's a pattern of thought, or it's a pattern of thinking that doesn't work for you anymore. And it's a pattern of thinking, and it's a pattern of thought, and it's a pattern of belief that continues to manifest, things in your life that you may not, it's like the person in this card, it's the Three of Wands. It's like some, you never know what you're going to get back, so it's just, yeah, there's a lot going on mentally here, and there's a lot that needs to be brought to light, that you can keep trying to run from it and hide from it, but that's not what's going to happen. You're just going to continue to stay here, you're going to continue to stay here, and it's going to continue to be the same old beliefs, and, the change that you want, the change that you're waiting patiently for isn't, you're going to be standing there waiting forever for it. Like, it's just not going to happen, Oh, my light. I have a censored light. Here we go. Sorry. But yeah, the light, it's not going to happen. The light turns off, right? Or it could just be that my light's a sensor. On a timer. You also have the death card. So you have some pretty intense archetypes going on right now. So you have the death card here. But in the death card, it's this figure on this horse is, the death card for me is actually a really great card. It talks about transformation that's necessary. Transformation that we kind of know is coming, that we know is before us, right? Like this, this figure has been on this horse and has been able to kind of see ahead, and it's been able to see the sun, and it's been able to see this golden figure here and the things that await. He's been able to see these things coming from a distance, and now he's finally approaching, right? So the death card to me is not, the tower is different in the sense that, like, the tower is a very abrupt and sudden change that happens, and it's inevitable as well, but it's not something that we ever really saw coming. But for me, the death card is like, you knew this was coming for a while. You could see it as you were riding up on your horse with your flag in your hand. You knew this was going to happen, so don't act so surprised and stop trying to run from it like you didn't ask for it in the first place. Right? Like, don't act like you didn't stand there. Don't act like you're not the great manifester of your own life. And, in this death card, there's definitely a great change, right? Because this figure he's moving out of, there's like a body laying here, and he's stepping over this body, and he's, walking towards this golden figure, and the sun is off in the distance. So it's like, with the death card, it's a necessary and much awaited change, but it's a change into a period, a much better period, a better suited period, a better, it's a change that was necessary, right? It's a change that's going to bring really great and positive new spiritual beginnings. And I think, usually when I see the ten of wands, it's like you're overwhelming yourself. But right now what I'm feeling is bury yourself in creative work, bury yourself in spiritual work, like only have eyes for the creative work, for the spirit. Like, this person, he's a little burdened, but like, he's still going, like he's not given up, right? Like, he's buried in his work and he can't see anything out in front of him. But sometimes we need to just be really focused and zeroed in on like that work, on that, I have these wands, I have these projects, I have this energy, I have this new creative energy, I have, the wands for me is also about spirituality and spirit and, our connect, like what we do in terms of spiritual practice, right? Like, in a very kind of Sagittarian sense of like expansion and, understanding and applying, knowledge, but, applying spiritual knowledge, right? Like learning how to apply spiritual knowledge, like learning how to take the spiritual lessons that like come with this card, right? Like they come with this death card. Like, how can I now learn? How can I now bury myself or consume myself with the lessons that I've just acquired from walking through this transformation? So it's like this death leads to, it's an ace for me. It's a new beginning. It's a humble beginning, right? Because it's, you have one wand, you got one cup, you got one pentacle, you have one sword, right? But it's very clear and concise. There isn't, it's one object. But yeah, it's like, what are you all running from and hiding from? Like, what is, what is, what's not being looked at? What's being avoided? Like, what is it? Like, what behavior or belief are you engaging in that doesn't work for you, but you keep doing it anyway? It's like the vicious cycle, right? It's like the cycle of addiction. It's like, this substance or this thing that you're addicted to is going to continue, and you're going to continue to do things in your life that, are going to make your life unmanageable, and you're going to continue to jeopardize relationships in the name of this substance or this, it could be, it doesn't have to just be drugs, it could be anything, right? But we do it anyway, right? It's insanity. Doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting different results. It's like you keep expecting different results or something to change, and it's just, but you're, like, the Hierophant is stuck, it's kind of stuck in his ways. Like, the Hierophant doesn't, the Hierophant is very much attached to and tied to the structure of how things are, That's why sometimes when I see the Hierophant in reverse, like, the first thing I think of is, very Uranian, Aquarian energies of, like, turning everything upside on its head. Let's get a few. Let's see what else is coming up for you all. Like a split kind of, like, right down the middle of, like, you have these two knights, right? And, this could represent, two different people, right? Like, two different love interests. Maybe there's a water sign, a Pisces, Cancer, or a Scorpio, and then there's another there's an air sign, right? An Aquarius, Gemini, and a Libra, right? And there's this kind of, who do I pick, or, like, what energy do I want to go for? But I'm more or less reading this, right? And then, like, and on the bottom of the deck is the Two of Swords, right? So it's like, and the Two of Swords, can mean many different things, once again, depending on what I'm picking up on, or, like, what's around it, but the Two of Swords is, it's like, it's kind of like a stalemate. Like, you're just kind of stuck between, like which, y'all are going through a lot. Y'all have got, I don't know, it's like, maybe there's a decision that needs to be made about a relationship, right? About a past or former relationship. Like, do I intellectualize my feelings and almost, in a sense, kind of like run from my feelings, or run for the hills, or just be very swift with the sword, right? Or do I kind of be steady and slow with my feelings and offer, whatever it is I have to offer, and that's, yeah, like, what's going on? What's going on, Leo? What's going on? So, there's this kind of split duality, right? Of, like, the mind versus the heart, and, there's a situation, right? Might be a situation where it's like, do I allow the reasoning of the mind, or do I allow the feeling of the heart to guide me? Like, where am I going to, where do I allow, and one thing about the mind versus the heart, right, is that the mind tends, the mind has a but and the heart carries an and, right? So the mind tends to prioritize things, right? So the mind will say, I like this person, but I have this responsibility and I have that and I have this and I'm not ready. But there's a lot of there's this, but there's also this. Like the two cannot coexist, right? But which is so expansive, right? And the heart is just so there goes my light again. Okay, sorry. Like the heart is so inclusive and so expansive, and the heart says, I like this person or I love you, and I have these responsibilities, and I have like, so the heart makes room for everything, whereas the mind has this inclination to want to prioritize things, and whatever isn't on that number one slot ends up getting kind of like knocked out of the way with that sword. And in a very harsh kind of way, especially when you're talking about people, right? Like if this is about a relationship or about a person, and we have to, there is this need, there is a sort of, basic human need to kind of, I have to do this and I have to do this and I have to do this, and like, my friends want to go out today, but I have to work, so I have, and work is a responsibility, right? But, sometimes we can just end up in a space where we really need the heart to be inclusive of like to be a little bit like, think with the heart a little bit more, be more in touch with the heart space in the heart center. Yeah, there's like a stalemate kind of going on, and a lot of reminiscing on the past, thinking about things from the past. And sometimes when we look at the past, there's a tendency to either look at the past with rose-colored glasses or, as if it was like the worst time ever in the history of our lives, right? Like there isn't this gray area happy medium of looking at, especially with relationships, right? And I'm kind of going through that myself with looking back at relationships and trying to not be over idealistic with how things went, but also to not be in total resentment, right? With of how things ended up turning out, right? And here you all are, the Strength card, the Leo card, and yeah, whatever's going on in here, whatever shadow side is showing up, right? Like, she's taming the beast and she's taming the shadow side, and but she's also nurturing it, right? Like our shadow side isn't just something that we can just like cut through, like, it's like they're it's not just about being like, oh, I have a shadow side and I'm gonna, cut through it and destroy it, and I'm gonna, I want, nothing to eat. Sometimes we have to face it and actually look at it and understand, like, where did this shadow come from, and kind of nurture it a little bit and understand that it's, it's a part of who we are. But the more we ignore it, the bigger it becomes, right? Like the bigger that it becomes, the more unmanageable it becomes. And so you can't use the mind in this situation. The intellect, while good, in a lot of yogic meditative practices, they talk about the mind as, this thing that binds us to our bodies or binds us to, this physical plane. And while the mind can be a great thing if used properly, most people don't know how to appropriately and effectively utilize the mind to where it can actually serve, right? And instead, we end up here when we're stuck in the mind. We end up, in this state of constant worry and rumination when we're constantly in the mind. And then even sometimes when we're in our feelings, like being in our feelings sometimes can trigger, right? Can totally trigger this, right? But as long as we're in the mind, we don't give ourselves the ability to have any kind of emotional release. We don't give ourselves the ability to observe and feel and let go of what's coming up through the moon. And so, yeah, like the mind wants to prioritize, and the mind wants to cut through things, and the mind wants to be smarter than everybody else around it. It wants to be smarter than everybody else's minds. It wants to, air can be a masculine, aggressive, dominating energy, right? It's about reasoning through things. It's about trying to make sense of things. And like this moon sometimes doesn't, like, making sense of this can't sometimes, like, trying to make sense of the contents of the moon. Like, I'm trying to think of a better word. Trying to make sense of the agenda of the moon, or like trying to make sense of the subconscious just is gonna, like, fucking lead you here. So whatever shadow side, whatever change, whatever dilemma, whatever it is that you're faced with right now, whatever it is that you're trying to run from, whatever ways of being, whatever old ways or patterns that aren't working for you anymore that you're engaging in, you're not going to intellectualize your way out of it. It's not going to happen that way. I would definitely, this Knight of Cups, very similar to the Knight of Pentacles. He's very patient. He's very noble. He has integrity. It's like the Knight of Swords and the Knight of Wands. Like, they're definitely courageous, but sometimes I question their integrity. Right? Sometimes I question if I pull this card in a reading for somebody and it represents a person, sometimes I question the integrity of that person and the staying power of that person and the selflessness, right? Like the ability of this person to, like, slow down for somebody else, right? Like this Knight of Cups will take its time. The Knight of Swords, this Knight of Swords, in addition with this Five of Swords, isn't going to slow down enough for you to really understand, right? Like, even this Death card, like this Death card, this guy on this horse is making a slow and steady approach, right? Like, nothing's moving in the background. Like, there isn't action, like it's, this guy's clearly moving at a fast pace. This is, it's a slow approach. It's and once again, like I said earlier, like he could, this was a change that was seen from miles away before he even got up here. That's just how I read it, right? And this Knight of Cups sees, right, where he's going. And he's holding the cup, right? The cup represents our emotions. It represents, emotions and feelings, and also, again, like our subconscious, right? Like the things that come up in the moon, the subconscious, the things like very Piscean, very kind of like Neptune, watery, things that are deep kind of energies, things that need to be revealed. And this knight, he's holding his cup, and he's very sure of this cup, and he's got it, and he's held it, and he he's in control of it, and I don't mean control in a way of being able to, do what he wants with it, but he understands it. And by understanding it, he's not fighting it anymore. In his understanding and in his firm grip of this cup, he's not fighting what this cup represents anymore. And he's not fighting the subconscious, hidden shadow realities that lay within this cup. Like he's not, and this guy is like running. He's running from it. Well, that's how they were laid out. He's running from, what this cup, and this person, this knight, is not afraid of it, yeah, y'all have a lot going on. Let me see if I can show you. There goes my charger. So, yeah, so we have the Moon and the Five of Swords and the Nine of Swords, right? And this Death card. We've got like new beginnings once we get through this old chapter. And it's a humble beginning, right? Like all you got is that one wand, but soon it turns into 10. And bury yourself in it, Just bury yourself in the work. Where's my light again? I'm sorry, you guys. I don't know why this light keeps turning off. Yeah. Let me do an outcome card for Leo for July 2017. I'm going to mix them up so we don't get the same card. Alright. So let's pull an outcome card for Leo, July 2017. Well, so, yeah, the Devil card came up. I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised that he's here. The Devil, for me, in the way that I interpret it, represents, it can represent, our destiny and what it is that we're supposed to be doing and getting onto that path, right? It's kind of karmic in a sense, so may not always be the good destiny or like the best, suited, but it's destiny nonetheless. But the way that what I'm kind of picking up is that it's bondage, right? Like these two figures are bound to one another. And it's almost as if like it's an attachment, but in a way that it's become this attachment of like need, beginning to need something that in our original form, right? Like in the original blueprint that source had, that spirit had for us, right? Like there are things that we've come to need and want and kind of chase after that in our original blueprint, right? In the original spirit form, blueprint of who we are. We didn't need those things, we didn't need much, and now there's a lot that we need. And so as an outcome for July and as advice, I would say, even going into August, I do feel that this energy is going to continue. It's going to continue, but it's going to continue in a way where, it's going to become more apparent and more aware. And the more, like I said before, the more you try to kind of run from it and not acknowledge it, the more bound you are to it, the more attached you are to it. And, whatever shadows, whatever aspects of your shadow side, your shadow self, you're not really willing to face or to acknowledge right now, just, face it and acknowledge it, face it, acknowledge it, walk through it, and release yourself from it. But yeah, I would definitely, and also being mindful of what you're consuming. Be mindful of, are you being overindulgent, whether that's in drugs, alcohol, food, sex, in any area, being mindful of your indulgence of things. So yeah, that's your reading, Leo. I just wish you all are gonna be fine. Leos are super fierce. Y'all know what to do. Like I said before, sometimes we need to think with the heart, and the heart leaves more room for more possibility for growth. And yeah. And if you want to book a personal reading with me, you can contact me at tattoosandtarot@gmail.com, or you can go to tattoosandtarot.com, and I will link both of those sites in the description box below. All right, have a good month, Leo, and I will see you all in August. Bye.